Too easy. And welcome back to the Salt Shake FGC podcast. Now I've got a Street Fighter player, Peppersaint. I think he was also known as Milkshake Duck, but aka James. Yeah, how's your night been, bruv?
It's been good, man. Thanks so much for having me on.
It's all good, man. If you could just maybe give those who don't know you a little brief intro about yourself.
Yeah, no problem. So name's James, but I guess most people probably know me as Peppersaint over the years. I'm primarily a Street Fighter player, fighting game player from South Auckland. Grew up in Papatoetoe, a few years ago now, a couple of decades ago at least. Yeah, I'd like to say I'm somewhat a competitive player, but yeah, family life and stuff have sort of taken a front seat in the last few years. So things like going to tournaments and that, I don't have as much time to bounce along and participate, but it's always certainly in the back of my mind to play games and to try and meet up with the guys.
Yeah,
And that's basically it. I've been playing for yeah, a number of years now.
yeah. Pretty much going back to like Turbo 2 days.
Yeah, I was I was very fortunate that I had a job at the end of high school at a video store, Video Easy in Papatoetoe, and most people probably remember the big like Street Fighter banner that they had on the wall there. If you ever went into the store, they had this massive like sign written Street Fighter and Sonic the Hedgehog banner, and I worked part time there after school. This is in the mid '90s, and we had a pretty good relationship with with the Coin Cascade guys who pretty much brought in all of the new Street Fighter games and Mortal Kombat 2 and the Alpha games when they came along, Killer Instinct, that sort of stuff. We had them at the video store, so I got off to a running start in terms of loving fighting games and
Yeah.
being involved with sort of a little community there.
Interesting you mentioned Coin Cascade because, like, for those who went to arcades, Time Zone and Fans, they were like one of the major or only suppliers. Like, they were the ones that you'd go to get the cabinets.
Yeah, we knew a guy who, well, the owner of Video Easy in Papatoetoe, I believe, was on really good terms with a guy from Stages, and they had always had cabinets there, but they were basically just shooting games and like pinball machine and that sort of thing. And it wasn't until I started that I put a bit of pressure on Mike, who was the owner of Video Easy Papatoetoe, to hey, can you get Street Fighter in for me? I love to play it. And there's a few boys who have flicked some dollars in there, and I'd like to think I was kind of responsible
Yeah.
for it kicking off in Peppersaint. I'm sure I'm not, but it's nothing like a high schooler pressuring their boss for I'll work extra hard if you can just get Street Fighter 3
If
when
you
it
could just keep
arrives.
it, yeah, yeah. Nah, take the credit, man. Like, were you into fighting games before working at that store? What was your understanding of so-called fighting
Yeah,
games?
I had a really fortunate to have a Sega Genesis, um, and managed to pick up Street Fighter, I think Super Street Fighter when that arrived in, and the dairies that were around us at the time, I think like most people who grew up in the sort of 80s and 90s, every dairy had a Street Fighter 2, and then the derivative of Street Fighter 2, you're always accessible. Though I didn't take it seriously until I guess until I was working at Video Easy and there was a little bit more of a crowd and there'd be some familiar faces who would come in and play, and um, you know yeah, that's probably that's where it started to kind of really take off for me.
Yeah,
Um,
I do kind of like, though, you were saying like in that period, you could tell it was a dairy if it did have an arcade machine outside, or if it had the little like the ball things. You know, you turn the knob, try to get
Yeah.
the prize, but obviously now everything's kind of everything's really changed.
It has, yeah, it is. Still a few dairies doing the spaces, but it's not generally Street Fighter anymore.
Yeah. Are there any takeaways or any dairies near where you are that still have like arcade machines like at the counter?
Nah, no way.
No.
Nah, I haven't seen. In fact, when I was in Dunedin, Chris and I just come back from South Island a couple of days ago, and I saw a cafe on Stewart Street that had an arcade cabinet there, and I was thinking it's got to be Street Fighter. Walk in the door, and it's Gauntlet.
Oh God.
It's the old school bird's eye view dungeon slasher Gauntlet. It's just unbelievable. But no, around my area, I can't remember the last time I've seen an arcade cabinet.
Outside of where I am, I think the last arcade machine I've actually seen outside of an arcade and stuff, it's a little bar, a little place called Andrew and Andrew, in the city, like downtown. And I think we went there for after drinks once for an event, for a tournament, and I wasn't keen on staying. And then, like you, I saw an arcade machine in the corner, and I didn't know what it was, but I was like, okay, no, I'll stay a bit longer. This feels somewhat familiar to me.
Definitely relatable.
Yeah, I mean, God, I mean, what? How much money would you spend normally on the machines when you were growing up? Yeah,
I distinctly remember when Alpha 2 came out, and they had it at what was at a stage. It was Stages in town, just off Key Street there, and I took all my birthday money. I took the bus in first thing in the morning, and then spent every dollar apart from my bus ride home, just pumping into the machine. I mean, tens of thousands of dollars I would have spent on playing at the arcade, I'm sure. Just so much. It's a little more forgiving now because you just have to buy the game once and then you're in. But back then, you know, just pretty much every spare dollar I had, I was throwing it into, you know, if I saw somebody playing, I'd jump on and give them a go.
Yeah. I was sorry, mate, keep going.
No, please.
I was just thinking about arcade culture and how certain customs may not be continuing, especially now with just being on console, at home on PC. You know, like you put the dollar on the side of the machine, so if the person loses, they know to get off. But it's a whole different culture, I guess, as well when it comes to gaming, because you add the essence of online. And obviously the big one that people talk about is just people talking shit about things that they don't really understand, like talking a big game but never showing up to an offline event. Whereas arcades, it's like, we know if you're real because you would have shown up by now.
It's definitely a thing. You couldn't hide back in the day, really. You know, you were either at the arcade playing, and then anybody can jump in and challenge you, or you just weren't there. It was there was no kind of in between.
Oh, sorry, dude.
No,
I keep
it's
doing it.
different.
I'll keep doing it quite a lot with every person, so I'm trying to get used to finding out, you know, finding the rhythm.
It's no problem at all. It always take a little bit to kind of collect my thoughts, and it's sort of almost halfway through a sentence I think, oh, I should probably say this as well. But I'm sure we'll cover it as we talk about, you know, Street Fighter 5 and that sort of thing. But just the landscape for learning and getting up to speed with a fighting game is so accelerated now. You know, people are at a really high level, playing it only, you know, less than a year. When we were, you know, when I was younger, that didn't exist, and the way you learnt to play the game, play their games, you know, the Tekken 1, 2, 3, Street Fighter 2, you know, Street Fighter 3, the Alpha series, was just showing up and you know, fighting some unknowns, and they might tell you something, and then, you know, you guys talk and you kind of learn stuff that way. It's really changed, I think, in a good way. But also, and I've talked to a couple of my friends who also played back then. It feels like it's feels like we're of a kind of a lost generation in terms of how quickly we can learn things. You know,
Yes, yeah,
it doesn't mean much now when I say I've been playing for, over 2 decades, almost 3 decades really. Um, it doesn't translate into how good a player I am anymore because people can just pick up a game and in 6 months they can be really, really competent. And that's it's a hard pill to swallow for somebody my age. But it's also a good thing because, the if the when particularly when I look at like the New Zealand fighting game community, if the base can grow quickly and the guys can get to a really good level fast, that just lifts the floor up on everybody.
yeah, exactly.
Everybody gets better. The whole community just gets stronger and stronger and stronger. Even us old timers have to, learn and adapt, and that's been a joy to watch. Some of the young players that we've had come through in the last 10 years, really, since the sort of the peak of Street Fighter 4 all the way through to till now.
Yeah,
Speaking as a Street Fighter player, it's just been one of the best things as an old dog to see the culture and that sort of thing just to evolve and grow, and it's just really heartening.
yeah.
I thought I didn't mean to sort of go on so
No,
much,
no, no,
but
please.
it's such an important, yeah,
No,
such an important aspect of the whole game for me, is that community and the how you learn the game and what's involved with that is just it's something special. I think fighting games in a way are quite unique in that regard, so to speak. Um, because every game you've got a learning curve. Chess you got a learning curve.
yeah.
It's fighting games, because they're so dear to me. It's something I've really thought about a lot, and really appreciate how it's gone, how it's turned this way. It's,
Yeah,
it's been really,
I do respect what you're saying, James. But also, you can look at a lot of the players who are quite seasoned, but are still
mm,
somewhat in form. Maybe not at their 100% best. But you've got like Daigo, obviously. Street Fighter, you got to go with Daigo. Like, if you don't, Daigo, even if you don't play Street Fighter. There's also
yep,
Sako, Fudo. There's like
yep,
all these players that are of a certain age, but there is
yep,
still talent and skill behind them. I guess what I'm saying is it's always nice for me when I see those players do really well, because it almost gives some kind
yeah,
of assurance. It's like skill isn't reflected in age. It's kind of going on what you were saying, like the amount of years you've
yeah,
been playing, it may not reflect in your skill, but then it's the same thing. It's like people see your age and they're like, okay, cool. Like, I don't think you'll be a problem. But what if they are?
yeah. Yeah, that's true. That's true. I think I think the biggest difference between maybe an older player, someone let's just say 30 plus, and somebody under 30, just from my experiences, just the the building blocks of how you've learned the game are quite different. And I think that like I was on the stream with Sendo last night. We had a couple of matches and stuff, and
Yeah, that
and,
was a
and
good one,
those
man.
boys were talking about. Thank you. It was so much fun. I was definitely nervous, but just the old, there's sort of almost an instinctual element because you had to learn sort of on the fly a bit when you were at the arcade. You had to sort of try and think about the game a little bit differently. You didn't have the frames to rely on so much. Um, but I'm glad that now you do, because it does, it just it you need it to make sense of the game. You need it to make sense of situations and that sort of stuff. Yeah, I kind of wish in a way that I had only picked it up recently, just because I think that it would come a lot more easier. It's sort of like the old, teaching an old dog new tricks. It's, I can feel myself, almost burdened by how I learned the game.
Yeah,
Means that my progress is going to be a bit slower than like a Ghost Chips or a Reno, or
yeah,
pretty much anybody younger than me. Pretty much everybody younger than me. Um, but in that, like I say, I'll repeat it again. There's some joy in that, because all you want is good competition. As a player, you I I don't understand the thing of the keeping people down, and not sharing tech,
oh
and
yeah,
and not
gatekeeping.
not
Yeah,
trying to fuck gatekeeping.
yeah,
Honestly, just gates open, guys. That's how it should be. You should just, that's where my attitude towards the game is always try and take a positive out of any match that I've got. And I think it was Xian, one of the I think he's Singaporean Street Fighter player, quite prominent player. He said that there's something good about everybody's play style, and that stuck with me. That kind of hit a chord. So even if you're bouncing up against bronze and silver players in Battle Lounge, eyes open and just staying positive about how they're playing, and there's some really good takeaways for even an experienced player from that kind of level.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just, I guess that's sort of how I approach the game, how I look at the game.
Okay. So when you were playing Sendo, what was your level of adaptation, or were you just going through your typical online game plan?
Yeah, I'd done a bit of a breakdown with the some of the more common strings that Sendo would be doing. I looked at a few of his replays against similar opponents. He hasn't really fought too many folks at all, but against a Ryu or a Dalsim or a Manat or even a Karin, you can kind of get an idea of where he wants to be on the screen and how he wants to navigate that space. And I had that really at the forefront when I was going into the matches, but I honestly got a little bit caught up in the streaming of it and the kind of like this is televised. I'm going to be critiqued really badly, and that kind of manifested. I honestly knew I wasn't playing as good and as solid as I can do.
Yeah.
And when I recognized that in myself, I was able to pump brakes a little bit and go, this is just a match. I can ignore the commentary. I can ignore the stream. I can just look at the screen as I normally do and just focus. And then it started to turn back, and it was always going to be close, I thought, but I made a mistake in letting it get away from me initially. Almost felt like tournament nerves, which is really bizarre for just a casual like show match. But yeah, it's a thing. It's definitely a thing. The mental game, I think, is a big factor.
Sorry,
such a big factor.
Oh yeah, and you just, like, obviously you said before you went on holiday with Chris, your partner. No. Do you go traveling quite a lot? Because whenever I see you tweet, it's always something music related or weird photos of your feet. You and your couple, you have a thing about taking photos of your feet together.
Yeah, it's kind of become a meme. Yeah, Chrissy and I, we really love each other's company, and I've got to say, this is nothing against my kids at all, but you do want to spend time with the person without having to worry about all the other peripheral things of
with your total total devotion,
normal family.
Yeah.
And the holidays were always a good way for us to not really reconnect, but just like we can just enjoy each other's company, and we don't have to worry about anything else sort of on the peripheries of that. And we had done a big European holiday a few years ago, and we planned last year just before COVID hit.
Yeah.
We were going to Italy in the May of that year last year. And that all got put on hold. So we just took the opportunity to go and see a bunch of areas around the South Island, and it's been just the best thing. It really is, everybody who hasn't been around the South Island really needs to go and just explore it, because it is just something remarkable. It gets in you.
Yeah.
And it is wholly unique, I think. I've been through all of Europe, good, fair few other countries, and there is just something really special about the South Island. So yeah, I definitely encourage people to go. But I think for us it's a bit of an escape from our works. We've got quite hectic sort of jobs and workplaces, and yeah, it's something that we're just going to try and continue to do. It's actually not that expensive. Just going and road tripping around the South
Exactly.
Island for a
Yeah.
little bit.
Definitely cheaper than flying.
I will encourage people to go and do it. Even Northland, we went to Northland in February, and it was just amazing up there. You know, the beaches up there are just completely world class, and no one's on them. You know, you go in the second or third week in February, and you've got it all to yourself, guys. Just go. Just go.
Well, tell me something. If you did have the children, where would they want to go?
Um, I'm not sure, and I only say that because trying to get three of them to agree on where they'd want to go, I think would probably be a bit of a mission. Um, so Cleo, who's my daughter, Chrissy, and I have Cleo, but you know, is our daughter. She's almost 8, and she'd really just go anywhere for an adventure, I think. But my boys, who I have to my previous marriage, are a bit older, 16 and almost 14, and I think it'd be a struggle to try and get them to agree to go anywhere.
Yeah.
Because they're you know, just gamers like I am, and they pretty much just, you know, if I said, you know, what do you want to do, they'd just be like, just chill at home and play PlayStation or Nintendo Switch and stuff. So I guess anywhere that we could also take devices to would probably be the call then.
Yeah. Do they have knowledge of you being a fighting game player? Have they seen?
They do.
Okay. Yeah, no, it's all good.
Yeah.
Have they ever asked you in-depth questions?
Oh, look, I'd love for that to be the case, but no, they haven't. Julian, who's my eldest, he went to a tournament. I think it was the first year of Street Fighter 5, and entered. Well, you know, I've got to say, I pushed him along a lot.
Yeah.
It's a big day for him as a young fella. And I've asked them if they, you know, if they ever want to learn, I'm always there for them to learn. But it feels like a real dad thing to do. So I'm just, you know, they know that I'm into it. They can see me playing. They can see the arcade sticks lined up on my desk here. They're definitely aware, and I'm hoping one day one of them will pick it up as a hobby, and then I'll have someone I can just jam with pretty much every weekend. It'd be really really good.
Your all-day training partner. Yeah.
Be great.
Hey,
yeah.
I saw this clip that someone in the FGC retweeted or something. It was a little clip explaining to parents how online gaming works, and so a parent is explaining, look, this is my kid, he's playing online, he can't pause it because it doesn't have that function. So if you just give them 5 or 10 minutes to wait. The concept of online gaming for parents, when they tell you to stop, you're gonna do them a massive favor.
Yeah. Yep.
Oh,
so true.
All right. I guess we'll go over the other bit now. You are an atheist, which isn't a big deal. I don't think I've met. I mean, maybe I have met quite a lot, but they just haven't been. They don't identify themselves as, "Hey, I don't believe I'm an atheist." You know, that's just me.
Yeah.
From my experience, I've always felt atheists to be pretty cool. It's actually the people who are behind a religion that are very. I don't want to use the wrong word, but very pushy, like extremely pushy to the fact where, you know, they kind of force religion in your face, and that's when people just, you know, bite back. Have you ever had that kind of attitude towards you when people find out you're an atheist, or, you know, when they talk to you about religion and stuff?
Yeah, you know, yes, definitely. I should really do a bit of a qualifier when it comes to how I identify as an atheist, and that is it's a really simple thing. It's just that I'm not convinced any gods exist. So I basically believe the same amount of gods that just about everybody does, except their one as well.
Yeah.
And when I'm able to explain it like that, people kind of understand. You know, it's just about being convinced. You can't really control what you're convinced of. It's not a choice, I think, that you got. You know, you never make up your mind to believe something. You just either are convinced or you're not. And I don't think I haven't been convinced, and I don't think that anybody who's made the claim a certain God exists or these gods exist has met their burden of proof, and that's just where I stand on it. As I kind of mentioned before when we were having a chat, that it's a reactive thing for me. Like someone says, "Do you believe in God?" It's like, no, I don't believe in any gods. Um, you know, it's just I'm not going out there saying there is no God, no gods exist. It's just they may well do, but I at the moment I'm not convinced they do. So I have to go to the default, which is I just don't believe it. Um, it's quite a complicated thing to discuss because up until I want to say pretty recently, it was kind of a taboo thing to say that you didn't believe any gods exist.
Yeah.
Like your parents are probably quite religious, or you were going to church and that sort of thing. That sort of thing. It was quite controversial. Um, the other thing which I think is really important as well, when you mentioned about people being pushy and stuff for religion, that's part of the tenant. Part of the kind of deal is for them to save people or to proselytize or to get other people to hear the good news or whatever it is. And look, I know plenty of religious folk um, who are just the best people, and sort of the same is true on the other side as well. Just where you haven't got any religious folk at all, and those people can be really, really hard to deal with and difficult. And I always go to the default, which is just people are people, and if you can kind of relate to them on a personal level, sort of a human level, we can have a conversation about anything.
Yeah.
Even if we disagree on fundamental things like religion and whether or not you believe in God or whether or not I believe in God or which God or whatever. I think that's really important to be able to connect with people, and why I probably wear the mantle of humanist more importantly than an atheist, because I believe people are good, or there is good in people, and that you've always got that middle ground, no matter what your sort of beliefs are. We all kind of want a better world, and that's a big part of that background and how I approach it. It's just that I happen to not be convinced that any gods exist.
Yeah. Yeah.
I just happen to be the guy who's like, I'm sorry, I just don't believe it.
Yeah. No, yeah, like exactly what I was saying. I just find atheists very chill and very, very literal thinkers. It's always interesting. You're right when you just say you don't believe in any gods. All of a sudden, it's negative, negative, negative. Ooh, if you want to save yourself, you want to save your people. Well, the best thing for you to do is, and it's like, I mean, I've already made up my mind. Like, I mean, the people in my life probably believe in what you're preaching, and they'll be saved. But for me, I'm good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think when it gets to that point, we I don't have as much exposure to it, but my ex-wife's family was Jehovah's Witnesses, and there was a lot of I wouldn't say pressure, but there was just you're very exposed to it, and you it's hard to avoid having a conversation about religion and that sort of thing. And I think navigating those waters in a non-confrontational way is quite important. I tend to look at I want to be quite skeptical, and I want to believe as many true things as possible and as few false things as possible. And when it comes to somebody making a claim about something like that, I'm open to it. I just, there just needs to be more than some book or my preacher told me, or, the guru said XYZ, or my horoscope says ABC. I just need a little more to kind of get there. It's tricky, when people ask you, you believe in God and stuff, and you say no. Their mind will fill, as you kind of mentioned, their mind will kind of fill with these sort of assumptions about you from there. And that's where I just wind back around again to nothing's beyond just having a conversation. If you want to know any more about me, all you need to do is but ask, and we can have a conversation about that.
Yeah.
And I think that it's an important thing to note as well, much the same as I wouldn't assume to know exactly what, any given Christian might think about any subject. Um, same as in reverse as well. And that, just because I'm an atheist doesn't mean anything about any of my other ideas. You don't know my views on politics or society or space travel or stocks or anything,
Yeah.
anything like that. Um, so yeah, I think that having the conversation, understanding that we're all trying to, I guess, trying to make a better world, and then just being open to the evidence and going where the evidence leads. And if the evidence doesn't lead you to a conclusion, then being okay with saying that you don't know or that you're not convinced, I think is pretty powerful.
Have you ever been like caught up in a conversation where you've really had to explain, or not explain, but you've really just had to say, look, like, I've told you where my thoughts lie, my path of reasoning goes to here, you're here, we're not at the same meeting spot?
Yeah, a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah, I when I worked in retail about 10 or so years ago, I had a couple of staff working with me who were quite religious and stuff, and kind of couldn't kind of get over the fact that that I was not a religious person and that sort of stuff, and it used to come up almost, I wouldn't say every weekend, but a lot whenever we worked together, to the point where it was just the lines of questioning and stuff that they were using. We'd already discussed, we'd already talked about, like things like, just for example, why don't you believe the Bible is true? And it's like, well, I believe it exists. It's a book there, but why do you think it's the word of God? I mean, for me, it's just a book. I mean, if you read the Bible, in the footnotes, it says they don't know who the authors of particularly the New Testament, they don't know who the authors are, who the original authors are, when they were written. They've got a good idea of when it is, and this is actually in it. And things like that, which you think would just be a bit of a stopping point for you if you were genuine about what you thought, just go straight over their heads, and they're not interested in actually having a conversation about the content at all. It was just pushing this idea of what it was, rather than actually looking at what it is actually. That was probably the worst that I've had it. We've had people stopping us in the street and stuff. If you've ever done a bit of traveling in Europe and stuff, you get people stopping you for all sorts of reasons, and religion sometimes comes up on you there.
Yeah.
And you get the good old J-dubs as well coming to the door and that sort of stuff. And I've had some great conversations with people, and I've got, having had a relationship with a Jehovah's Witness, I have got a pretty extensive Bible knowledge, and it's always interested me, myths and legends and religiosity of people and religion and that sort of thing has always been an interesting subject for me. So it's quite enjoyable to talk about it. But you're right. When it can't be a dialogue anymore, you can't actually ask any questions and stuff. It's hard. It is.
Yeah.
Because I think sometimes people do know that they've got to the point where they should be stopping the conversation. They know that I'm not going to be just convinced because you told me.
Yeah.
I need a little bit more. And what you're providing is more. We've already refuted. I've already said that's just not enough.
Yeah. When they catch you in that moment, in that conversation, they're not leaving until they convince you. And you're just like, that's way too much work, and I don't have the time.
Way too much work. Yeah, it's so true. So true.
I wonder how...
But I would...
Oh, sorry, no.
I was just going to say, it's... Look, people, as much as I'm not convinced, some people are convinced, and I would never want anybody just to stop believing something until until it was the right time for them. It's tough,
Mm.
being, you know, when you are convinced, or if you have a particular worldview, that will carry through, and it takes some monumental things to try and shift away from that. And so I don't begrudge anybody for having a view that they do. I don't think, most people are pretty genuine about how they feel about religion and their concept of gods and that sort of stuff. And I think that people are trying to be genuine, even if they are being a little bit ignorant of, a conversation that you might have, or a point that you're trying to make. Um, I think that their hearts are in the right place. Is kind of where I'm trying to go with that.
Yeah, you said it somewhat, and I think it is. I think it is right. It's pretty beautiful. You know, some people just don't have anything to believe in yet, and it's not me sounding sad, but you're right. Maybe they just don't have anything at that time. But one day they may do,
Yeah,
and they should have the freedom to kind of explore what the depth of that is.
yeah,
Yeah, I wonder. I
yeah.
wonder. I wonder. Like atheists in video games, I don't think they really care. But I wonder how hardcore Christians view video games. You know, because once again, it's like, video games. Oh, you can be someone who shoots people and steals cars. Oh, that's blasphemous. I think really extreme Christians dislike video games. You know.
Yeah, but then that sort of thing is really interesting, because there's so many rules, in the particularly Old Testament, 600 odd rules about what you should be doing. And I'd be sure that most people who would say that they were quite fundamental or born again aren't following everything.
Yeah, and
For
they
example,
and don't
wearing
even know that
clothing of
they're under.
every,
Yeah,
or eating shellfish or anything like that. Those things are in there as well, and no one's batting an eye about it. So it for me, there's always that, like, if you're going to follow it, you'd probably have my respect if you were more literal. But if you follow it literally, let's face it, you're probably a monster.
yeah,
You're probably
un, un,
not worth
yeah.
not worth the
Not
conversation.
getting through this gate, son. Well, I mean, I do have some family members that are Mormons, but from
Mm,
from from my from my family history, the experience has been, they say they do all these, they live by these set of rules, but more
yeah,
often than not, I see them break them like so often. Like
yeah,
drinking's quite a common one. They're not supposed to drink, supposed to have their body clean. But I know these people drink
yeah,
every weekend. So it's
yeah,
like, I guess what I'm saying is, with the religion, it's always funny how people say, "Oh, I am this," but
yeah,
then if you look in the text, they actually do things against it. So it's like, "Oh, but I'm not a complete
yeah.
Christian or a Catholic," and then I'm like, "Well, what does that even mean? You're not a complete. You either are or you're not."
That's true. And you've nailed it right there, Daly. And that is that you're human first, and then you apply these ideas of what you think you might be. Like, I'm a human first, and then I might also happen to be an atheist. I might also
Mm.
happen to be a, you know humanist. I might also happen to be a socialist or whatever. Um, that's, I think, what you just demonstrated, is that's really at the core of most people's sort of, they're just humans first, and then they've got these sort of things that they apply to themselves. um, um, Sometimes for the sake of appearances, sometimes just because their family's that way, sometimes because it's a cultural thing or whatever. um, and so I think it's, and again, just rounding back to that, like, kind of recognizing the kind of the human element, and it is quite an important thing to
Mm.
do. I've got to say, it's a massive middle ground having that there.
Yeah, man.
Um, Particularly if you can approach it from the point you just, you understand people can have different views from you, um, and they can do different things. It's, yeah, and as long as people are open to dialogue, which is one of my favorite things
Yeah.
to have a discussion, um, man, you should be able to talk about anything.
Yeah,
You should.
no, you're right.
Human,
Absolutely, man.
humans first, and then just everything else from
Yeah, I like that, humans first. Cool. Well, hopefully
there.
I've swung that back to the gaming side. So
Yeah.
we can go over Street Fighter 4 now. And that game,
Yeah. Wow.
awesome, and you were playing someone not like Folk. You were playing Rose.
Yeah.
What was she like? How was it like playing that game? Like, I think that was the strongest, well, maybe not the strongest the scene has ever been, but that breathed in a new life. It was a new chapter for this FGC. Yeah.
Here I think leaps and bounds. Just the progress the community made and just the building blocks of it was phenomenal. But Street Fighter 4 is just, like I would credit it for my reinvigoration and just thinking about fighting games differently. And I suffered a little bit from the same sort of dilemma that I have in Street Fighter 5 with this sort of character crisis in its early life. I didn't actually pick up Rose until probably a good year after the console release. I think it wasn't until Super Street Fighter 4 and then Ultra Street Fighter 4 that I was really, solidly a Rose player. I played Claw or Vega. I played Sea Viper quite a lot as well. And for me, it was always just, it probably to a fault want to kind of do something a little bit different. And I know it's not conducive to being a top competitive player. I think I probably wanted to approach the game, and I've done it with Street Fighter 5 as well, is slightly more sort of just something a little bit interesting or something a little bit different. Whereas, like getting to Rose in the end of it, Rose was one of those sort of fringe characters until it wasn't really until Luffy's run at Evo that the weights sort of started to build behind Rose, and she started ending up being really recognized as being quite a strong character in the game. Definitely a different beast. Street Fighter 4, just the game, the sort of mechanics behind the game, the way the game was sort of put together than Street Fighter 5. But you've got all of those transferable skills that hopefully can take you to a decent level through both games. I mean, I've said it before, and I stand by it, that Rose is my favorite Street Fighter character. I think ever since the Alpha days. She was the one that I played.
Yeah, well, that was her debut, right? Yeah, I was going to ask you, did you ever touch her, or did you ever look into the character?
Oh, for sure, yeah. Alpha, all of the Alphas, including Alpha 3, which I probably play the most. Shout outs to Lenny at Hunters Plaza. I mean, him and I and Simon, my friend, Crazy Mobius, and Wani, Lenny's friend, we played that so much. And I think Rose and Cody were my two main characters in that game. A little bit of Relento, a little bit of Gen. So it was really nice to have her in Street Fighter 4, even though I wasn't sure about how the game was going to go for me. I really liked Sea Viper. I liked playing Claw and stuff. It was different sort of thing. But in the end, it ended up being just one of the best experiences for me growing as a player. I was very, very fortunate to have just the best training partner almost every Wednesday in Rumble. Yeah. Especially at the later half of sort of Street Fighter 4's life. People like that, and if you got the ability to play with somebody who is just frankly better than you, who is willing to try and build you up, is just so good for you as a player. Somebody who will dramatically and non-confrontationally point out where you're making mistakes. Just say, you shouldn't have done this. Why don't you look at it this way? Why don't you approach it in this way? So Street Fighter 4 definitely got a special place for me, and Rose as a character as well is just, just my favorite character of all time. She's just, so cool. Italian fortune teller, it's like one of my favorite countries. Not necessarily something that I'm interested in being a fortune teller, but she's just cool. And Lisa as well, the JoJo's reference is always.
Yep. Well, when she came out for Street Fighter 5, man, it was that tarot card V-Skill that sold me. I was like, that's actually pretty cool.
Man, I so desperately wanted to play. I think everybody knew. There's almost this.
People would see the character and they're like, oh yeah, like this is his character.
Yeah.
Let's go.
But it's a funny old beast as Street Fighter 5, and that we know you look at Ken, you look at Guile, you look at Sakura, you look at all of the characters that have been in those previous Street Fighters and how they've sort of paid this homage to them, this idea of what the character is, and then implemented it in this Street Fighter V way. And so for me with Rose, it just wasn't connecting in the way that I there wasn't too much that was familiar about the style of play. It was just not quite hitting the mark in terms of where I would like to have been with the character.
Yeah.
My opinion as well, I don't think that she's particularly strong. But look, honestly, the types of characters I play, that doesn't really worry me so much. But I think, based on where I was with Folk, looking at picking up Rose as sort of transitioning into another character, I think definitely strength would probably have to be a factor in that, and I just didn't feel it. And the style of play was a little bit different than sort of what I would have liked as well. She definitely didn't have the Street Fighter 4 style, dash and close pressure and the poking game, and yes, she had the zoning and that sort of thing, but it was really emphasized in Street Fighter 5. But I'm really glad to see people like Shinkan on Sendo stream last night. Amazing Australian Street Fighter player playing Rose in a matchup which I think is probably pretty crap for Rose. Guile, and watch him take out pretty much one of the best guys in Australia in a first to 7 set is just it's heartwarming.
Yeah. Seeing
the character do work like that. But yeah, you got to, there's that degree of, just not being able to connect with the character. And I think, just trying to think of another player who's probably gone through the same sort of thing. I think like Rumble with Cody, when Cody dropped in Street Fighter 5, and he felt that Ed was probably more Cody Street Fighter 4, who he'd played for, pretty much all of Street Fighter 4's lifetime. Ed in Street Fighter 5 was more like Cody in Street Fighter 4 than Cody was in Street Fighter 5. And that's how I kind of felt a little bit with Rose. Though I didn't really have a Rose character in Street Fighter 5.
Yeah.
I just play Folk. So that's, will I look at playing her again? Of course, casually, 100%. I've definitely had a bit of a muck around and always in training mode, bouncing ideas around and trying to figure things out. But I think competitively, I've got to go with the German lass with Folk. I think that I've built up too much of a reputation. I can't let everybody down.
Yeah. What were some things that changed? She doesn't have her projectile reflect because that's Manat's. She's got Soul Bind and she's got Soul Punish, which is kind of like the orb that Manat has. But I could totally understand that it doesn't feel like the Rose that you knew.
Yeah, I think just that that closer pressure. There's a little bit of a mix up with Rose Street Fighter 4 close up pressure. She's got that close medium kick, which is throw invulnerable. You can go, you can sort of tick people out, and you can bait a low with it as well. And just her buttons are really good. Range wise and frame wise, really decent in Street Fighter 4. Reflects, I think, a factor, but I don't miss it that much. I think you kind of get used to the way fireballs work in Street Fighter 5. There's always a little bit, they're not quite as much of a threat as what they have been in past games. And almost everybody's got a way around them. So the reflect, although you do miss it, really, I don't think it's that big a factor. But just that ability to kind of dash in and apply pressure in that way was gone. It's just not there with Street Fighter 5 Rose. There's a little bit of it. I've got to be fair. She does have a couple of good buttons, but you can't really do it in the same way. I don't think you can play her in the same way.
Yeah. Is she stronger than her student Manat, or does Manat just blow her out of the water?
I think Manat just as a character is much stronger than Rose is. they're almost doing the same thing in terms of the game plan. Both zoning characters. Um, but I think Manat has a much easier time establishing that. And I think some of those matchups that, there are some matchups that Manat has a really, really strong advantage, against the Zangief player. Rose wouldn't be able to get anywhere close to that. In fact, I don't think it's necessarily a good match for Rose at all, which seems ridiculous given she's a zoner.
Yeah.
And you play that triangle of matches. Zoner typically beats a grappler, Rushdown beats a zoner, and a grappler will beat a Rushdown character. It's kind of that's sort of the old triangle of Street Fighter characters. And to have a zoner who just can't quite cut it against grapplers is it's a worry. So yeah, seems really funny, but I pride myself as a player with my ability to deal with grapplers. Yeah. I think most people know me as a zoner, but I've always felt comfortable against a Zangief or an Abigail or a Birdie. I think most people know that I'm kind of good with that. I struggle with the kind of mix up and the scramble play. If I can control it, if I can know what the pace of a match is going to be, I'm generally pretty good.
Yeah.
But yeah, to have a zoner like Rose not perform well against grapplers feels really bad for me. Yeah. And that's kind of where I left it. I just had to go, look, not quite what I'm looking for in my Rose, unfortunately.
Yeah. But you're starting to find the kind of edge in Folk. Like, she does seem quite stronger this season. I think you tweeted before.
Yeah. Oh, definitely. I mean, they can't continue to buff a character and have her not end up being stronger. It just, even on paper, she's just much better overall. And I think that Folk is one of those characters that, look, you're just the raw data and a community effort in improving the character just was never there to begin with. And that's it's an important consideration. When you talk about characters kind of being developed and characters being solved, might be a term you might have heard before. I'm also play a little bit of Magic the Gathering, and they talk about formats being solved and those sorts of things. And I think that it also applies to Street Fighter, and that there can be an optimal way of playing a character.
Yeah,
there has to be. Folk, I think, is just so sort of she's not far enough down the track for her to really be developed that well, and so a lot of it is kind of you can easily dismiss the character because you think, oh no, she just can't compete on that. But I think a lot of it is because she hasn't been developed that well, and I'm happy, love to be one of the people, even in a small way, to help with the development of the character. Some recognition, or I think that that would just make my day if there was some way of knowing that you helped other people recognize how good the character was.
Yeah.
But I'm under no illusion. I know that she is not the best.
Yeah.
She's definitely bottom half of the roster.
But hey, I've seen you hold your own, man. I think I've actually seen you twice at a Hambats, and you've played against Reno, Arashi, and I think you've played against like one of the Auckland boys. I can't remember exactly, but I've seen you play strong players, and yeah, your Folk is no pushover. But then obviously the meta, I know, in this game is very important. Character strength means so much in this game.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, and there's also the we talk about local scene. A lot of it is just what you expect of the player as well. Playing the player is a factor. And I know the boys, like when they play me, they know certain traits that I have as I play too. But yeah, I know. Even though I am playing this character, I think my overall competitive placing has been pretty good. Like I got fifth at War in 2019, and got quite fairly high up in most of the tournaments I've been in playing this character outside of the season. So I think part of that is maybe just that I'm decent as a player. A bit of it will definitely be unfamiliarity with the character and matchup, but that's on those guys, not on me so much. um, yeah, yeah. I mean the New Zealand fighting game scene is so it's small, and um, you know I think everybody's probably beaten everybody at some stage. If you're on that, if you're on a kind of that up level, so as much as it puts a smile on my face to think that I might have been beaten Reno at a Hamilton Rambats. You know,
It was
the
coming sooner or
results.
later. Yeah.
Yeah. It's just too right, too right. The results kind of that doesn't really matter in the scheme of things.
Well, I know that you.
If we
Oh, sorry. No, you go, man.
I was going to say, if we played a first to 10, I might win a couple of games, and that's my 2 wins at Hambats.
Yeah.
It's kind of like that.
Yeah.
It's kind of like that.
Yeah. Yeah. Did you watch any of the Intel World Open? Was that streamed on their website? Because,
no.
Yeah, because you had to just find players who were streaming it. Did you happen to watch anyone doing their run?
I did. Yeah. I watched Ting and Shamir, who did the Lizzie from Hamilton did the multi stream, which is just the best thing. She's so damn hype, and we love her. Chrissy and I are just such big fans of hers on commentary. She's just 100%.
She keeps it real. Well, actually, I made a little compilation of some of the guys who are performing. So like Simp and Tinkos and stuff. And obviously the last one we can talk about. It started off really well, and then you got to a certain streamer's, run pool and how they went, and contest. It ain't gonna do jack. But how important was this? How important or how special was this tournament?
I think it's in terms of the world stage and the elevated sort of the recognition of the region, probably the most important for Street Fighter V's lifetime. I mean, you've got worldwide recognition of the players. You've got names up on Twitter. The prize money's there. I think it was really important. I think also it's in a way it's kind of it's just again reinforced that the community, and I don't say this really lightly because it can be, like I've had conversations with people about this before, is that it validates the community. It's such a stupid thing to say because we are a community and we are valid, but it's really easy to be dismissive of a region like ours, of New Zealand, because we don't have the stage, we don't have the massive audience, we don't have the huge Twitter following or the Twitch following, or the YouTube presence, and to just have a little bit of that now, I think is just amazing. It's great.
It's being in our NZ bubble, Like if Patrick Gower went to America, he ain't Patrick Gower. He's just another white man in Beverly Hills.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah. It's kind of the same thing. It's like one of our strongest players goes to America unless they've actually done some looking them up. But yeah. So getting on the world stage, man, it's good.
I think also just look, prize money, it says a lot, and the amount of people competing at each of the tournaments, and I was gutted, just the combination of circumstances for myself not being able to have the time to be able to participate in them. My trip to Southland from last week, and a bit of family stuff on both the nights. But it was just, it's a joy to watch the guys play. They're something about the New Zealand fighting game players is that there's just so many good people and just incredibly deserving spots. I mean, it's great to have that mix there. Yes, definitely. Unfortunately, Reno with his match to qualify.
We're gonna get to it. Oh boy, we are gonna get to it.
That is, I mean, it was heartbreaking watching it because, he plays, he plays a little bit with his heart on his sleeve, but he can back it up. Just this thing I love about Reno is just, he's a young guy. He's just got fucking guts. He's just such a star, and the aftermath of that was just. You just wish you could do something about it.
You could. I mean, we're going to get to it, but you could see his face. You could tell he wanted to react. You could so tell he wanted to react in the moment, but he's playing, maybe a bit of that stream awareness. And then when that set was over, it was just the 10 seconds of silence. Like, oh yeah, that just happened. Ugh.
Man, yeah,
bro.
Good reaction. That sound, is just how we felt about it. And the crazy thing is that we know, it's going to happen again.
Yeah.
This closed, this is the worst bit, is that it's not like it's just gone and it's done and it's there. And look, the poor chap in French Polynesia or wherever he's from, I have my theories. He's just trying to play the game and win some money.
Yeah.
But the he's sort of on his own there. We're also trying to play the game, and not only that, the tournament is its own beast. The actual having a recognizable, reputable tournament, surely for the organizers is got to be at the forefront. And to have matches there, and you've seen it right across the world. I think Middle East was probably another really good example of people playing these ridiculous connections.
Yeah.
It's just, I don't know. You think you would hope that they would learn from how this one's put together, and that if they were going to be picking it up next year, be a little bit more refined about where the regions end.
Yeah. It was interesting. Like, in the beginning it seemed okay, but then as the bracket went on and as the player where they were based kind of got more widespread, just, you could you're right, you can tell right away, oh, this isn't going to be a clean game by any means.
No, not at all. I thought some amazing science done. The beauty of the man Ting, just his how he was picking it apart frame by frame. He was looking at the footage, explaining why this was an issue. You'd think surely this is hopefully this is going to somebody who's able to go, yeah, this really wasn't playable for the New Zealand players. But we are stuck with it. There just isn't going to be any recourse here. We're just going to have to deal.
I know that Simp said in Reno's chat to contest it. I'm a bit unfamiliar with it, so if they aren't happy, they can contest it, and then that's left up to someone. Oh, here we go. Because I think Simp tried to contest his match, but it did nothing. And you can see this abomination happen. Yeah.
Just, man, it's just
all of a sudden, Laura's Nightcrawler. She's everywhere at once.
But like the things like Ting's amazing analysis of this, like this, this guy was anti-airing Reno. Reno's playing for his life here, just throwing stuff out. But it was one-way traffic. The gentleman on the other end there. Forgive my assumption. It's a gentleman, person. The wonderful person on the other side there from French Polynesia wasn't experiencing this match the way that Reno was. It'd be a little bit different, I think, and I guess you'd like to think in an ideal world if the connection is going to be bad, and at least it goes both ways. But we just know that wasn't the case. The guy was anti-airing. He was playing reactively. Reno just didn't have the luxury of that at all. So far removed from normal Street Fighter.
How the hell do you confirm with a connection when you're on this connection, man?
Oh,
Like you're right.
I
He's literally just throwing stuff out there just to catch him.
yeah, yeah. It's just really hard to watch. Just so unjust. Just yeah, really, really tough.
Yeah.
So I guess the contesting it was about, like when it comes to contesting in this sort of tournament, is it's got to go through, it's got to be a legitimate contest. You can't just go. They have criteria for why you would be contesting a match, and it might be something as simple as, so say somebody picked the wrong costume or picked the wrong stage or an illegal stage, or you know something of that ilk would fall within the lines of being a legitimate, being able to contest it. But I don't think that the people who are running the tournament are probably equipped to deal with this kind of thing.
No.
Um, just can't be, and that's why I'm hoping that the lesson will be learned when they see this. Hopefully, they've seen it. And we aren't going to be the only people. Poor Reno isn't going to be the only person. I mean, like our boys weren't going to be the only people. The Australian guys are also going to experience this when we get into this closed tournament.
Yeah.
Even more elevated then, bigger stage then, to see this shit show unfold. So I don't know. I'm just hoping that they're thinking about the next time, or goodness, maybe something put in place. I'm not sure. I don't know. Really hard.
Yeah.
It's such a shame because the tournament itself was so cool. Four nights. Had so many guys involved with it. You had almost the entire Wellington FGC online playing. Blackout with his amazing run, just that, unbelievably cool Urian. Moose going down to the wire against Ghost Ships. You're just so proud. Just unbelievably great matches. Simp destroying people. Just, Mercy and the first one just running a train through losers bracket. Yeah. Just, there's some, wonderful stories and highlights and stuff. And then you've got this massive elephant just running roughshod over the whole thing, that it could just be all for naught, because this guy's probably going to run away with it if this connection isn't sorted.
Yeah.
And Maori Boy as well, Rich taking out the first tournament as well. And that, there's something about their validation of taking out the first tournament, because the first tournament's probably the hardest, because you've got everybody vying for it. You had the Renos, you had the Ghost Ships, you had everybody in that. If it's somebody, who I'm so proud of Rich. We went through Street Fighter 4 together, and he's just a remarkable player and such a remarkable human as well. Just, I have so much time for him.
Yeah.
To see his name in that number one slot was just awesome. So yes, a very long-winded way of saying great tournament. Yikes for the circumstances around it. I hope that we see more, and it's more tuned and it's tidier, but more of the same with slightly better regions would be great.
Yeah, with better
really,
regions.
Really good.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, no, I hope it'll get better. But one thing that could make it slightly better is not too long from now, we're going to have Oro into Street Fighter 5. Now, is he the first? He's not the first. Is he the first character from Street Fighter 3? No, he's not. He's not. Sorry, there's Urian and stuff. But, this is quite a big deal. He's only... this is a character I know a lot of people have wanted.
Yeah. Yeah, I used to play Oro pretty much all the way through the Street Fighter 3 series as well. He's probably my main character. So yeah, he doesn't look fantastic in the game. It just, the footage that they've shown so far of the pre-build stuff and demonstrating the V triggers, the V skills, and just the basic combos and special moves and that sort of thing. Just it looks like they've tried to stay very, very true to it. But.
Oh, you got a but.
I do. My hesitation in getting too overexcited is really partly because of Rose, and that transition from the older games into Street Fighter V, and the kind of work that a development team will do to, you know, reimagine the character, even though he has all the same moves and will have, I guess, most of the same normals. You're still in the different, kind of in a different universe, and I just don't know what to expect in terms of. It can be one of those things that until you actually have them in front of you and you're able to play them, I think really hard to judge how good he's going to be. Street Fighter 3 characters are really strange as well because there's such a wide, you know, weird assortment of moves that they do. You know, you've got, you know, like semi-grapplers, you know, like fireball or leaping attacks out of Oro. I mean, just an amazing repertoire. You think just on the paper alone, he looks like he'll be such a cool character to play. You know, there's the zoning elements, there's, you know, a little bit of Russian elements, a little bit of a grappler element. You know, seems like such a nice, well-rounded character, you know, tool base there. But with a little bit of trepidation, maybe. I don't know. I don't know. I'd love for him to be cool.
Yeah.
I'd love for him to be a strong character.
How did he play in Street Fighter 3? Was he of a certain strength? Was he quite viable?
Yeah, Street Fighter 3, Third Strike in particular, he had an unblockable setup with Yagodama, one of his critical arts. You could do sort of a left-right mix-up, which was impossible to block using his double jump. And also, you know, like just insane combos using his Tengu Stone, which is where the little objects fly around him. You know, you do some really massive damage. So he was, you know, like most characters, I think, from Street Fighter 3, there wasn't really kind of almost a set sort of, you know, like true zoner. He was a good mix of all those things. I'd say he's probably more of a mix-up character in Street Fighter 3 than any other thing. But that mantle could honestly be worn by most characters in Street Fighter 3 just by the nature of the game it's put together. It looks like there might be that sort of element in the game as well. You know, like Urien is probably going to be a really good example of how Oro will might end up. You know, Urien has the same sort of move set, I guess, minus the command grab, but just, you know, like that, the Aegis Reflector, the knee drop, you know, you can kind of, you know, the mix-ups, the high-low, of course, with Urien was really strong too. I dare say that'll be a thing with Oro, I think, too. It's really cool that they brought in the, I think it's the Kishinriki, his multiple, like, ground pound throw as one of the V triggers.
Oh, yeah.
And Tengu Stone as well. I mean, they just look amazing in the game. Street Fighter 5 has never spared, I think, on the aesthetics. They've always made the characters look, you know, amazing and do really cool things. And you know, just the animation alone is awesome. But yeah, we need to see a match and need to get those you know, him actually in front of us and have a bit of a tutu and and see what he's all about. Yeah,
Okay.
cool though. I mean, you know, I think no one was really, you know, going back a year, no one was really expecting this season to have. You know, we don't know what was going to be coming. We knew Seth was going to be there, but we didn't really know anything else. But I think, you know, they've certainly done a lot of fan service by bringing in Rose and Oro and Akira as well. Those three characters are you know, great for the you know, paying a bit of a sort of a respect and saying, you know, a kind of a thank you to the player base. You know, there's other people who have maybe played rival schools and like Akira, that style of character. Yeah, it's going to be really cool. And then of course we've got the mystery character as well, which is going to be interesting. A few sort of theories floating around out there. Seems and wouldn't you agree that you know, an unannounced last character, I think, means they're probably working on somebody new. I can't see it being a returning character because wouldn't you just say?
Yeah,
I
yeah.
don't know.
I'm a bit too unfamiliar,
Doesn't,
but you might be able to correct me. So someone in the scene told me, because of the costumes that are available for this guest character, sorry, for the final character, it's
yep.
gonna probably be a male. But then when
Yeah.
you break it down, who, like, they were going to end it with Seth with that season, and that would have been the right choice because that's the nice way to wrap up, you know. But now having to
Yeah.
introduce every new character and then add their moves to Seth because of his V skill, the tendon, you know,
Yeah.
that tendon engine, you know, that thing that absorbs the ability.
Yeah.
So this last character, I mean, naturally, I would feel has to be someone really special. So it could be someone completely new, or it could be another. I don't think it could be a crossover thing. I mean, but what do you think, James?
I think it's got to be somebody new. That's where I'd be putting my chips if it was. I can't see it being a returning character. I think that they wouldn't be so coy about saying, you know, if it was going to be say a Dudley or a Makoto or, you know, Remy, even but
Remy, God,
Remy,
yeah,
you
that'd be
know,
interesting. Yeah,
wow. You know, surely you just say, you know, because then that anticipation builds. But the being quite deliberate about not saying who the last character is, I think has got more of a new character vibe for me. You know, they were okay with doing those sorts of reveals earlier on. You know, where they'd say, you know, here's a new character, and you're just going to get a picture of them. You know, like the G.
yeah,
You know, like 3 or 4 seconds of animation. It's like, who the hell is this guy? And that's okay. But you know, for now to be a mystery, I think is, you know, I can't. I just, yeah, I'm completely on the new character, and then it's just what is the tie-in? You know, this is meant to be set before Street Fighter 3, in between Street Fighter 4 and Street Fighter 3 comes later, you know, in the chronological order. But you know, who's bridging these? Who's bridging it now? I just don't understand. I
well,
think Gil or Seth, I agree with you,
yeah,
would have been the good points to kind of end it on,
because it segues
to
into
move
Street
forward.
Fighter 3. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, totally. So I don't know. Just yeah,
yeah. I mean,
be cool to see.
maybe this character could still segue into Street Fighter 3. Could be Necro, could be Sean, but I think it has to be someone really special.
Yeah, yeah. Final character has just has to be.
All right, my guy. I'll take you to your final round question. So you ready?
Yeah, of course.
Sweet. All right, first one. Have you ever seen a fellow dad in need of help, and what did you do?
Um, yeah. This is really, I guess, corny, but my dad had been in help, had needed help, and um, he had a major surgery, lost both his legs just due to a vascular disease a few years ago, and just his you know, him having to transition from being able to not, um, and you know, the family, us kids having to kind of rally around and help him, you know, with adjusting to life in a wheelchair. And I'll say he's quite a proud man, so wanting to be independent as well. Um, that's the first thing that springs to mind. I know that's probably not a very good example, but yeah, that's that's the first thing I can think of when I think of a dad in need. It was my dad.
No, that's beautiful, man. No, thank you. All right. What buff would you give to Folk and why?
um, Look, if I was asking for something ridiculous, it would be a cancelable crouching medium kick. But that's never going to happen. So I think I'd really like to see, if I was just going with cool, awesome thing, maybe an EX shot. You know, she's got a gunshot which you have to hold the buttons for. Some way of doing an EX version of that. You know, maybe a crumple and hit like Kage's one, or you know, multiple hitting one in the air would be pretty cool. Um, yeah, I mean, maybe a couple of extra frames on standing light punch and not as much pushback on standing medium punch. I guess I don't know.
Okay. All right. What are three things that help you enjoy winter?
Oh, dude, music, family, fighting games.
Oh, that's a hearty answer. All right. What's been a good classic Street Fighter experience you've had?
Um, I think probably the most important, like the biggest moment for me when I realized I was kind of a good player was getting second at First Blood. Um, I think it was just after Ultra Street Fighter 4 came out, and I played the grand finals versus Wazza. But I beat Rumble, I beat Zosla, I beat a few big names through the tournament, and I'm just really grateful that I went and to all the players, of course, for being there because it was yeah, really memorable for me.
Um, what movie what movie or series or show speaks to your
Mhm.
childhood?
I think um, I think the movie there's two. There's probably Princess Bride and Labyrinth. Um, just because hey, I was born in the late '70s, so
Yeah.
I had the beauty of the '80s, sort of being a young fella.
There were some good
Um,
movies out during that time. Princess Bride
dude,
was a
yes,
Labyrinth is such a classic one.
they're just some of the best, some of the best. It's like lines. Every week you'd say you'd be memeing out just saying lines from them. But like now, just yeah, for sure, those two.
All right. Okay. V Shift has effectively changed the meta, making all characters viable. True or false?
Um, false.
Okay. All right. If knowledge is power, what's one thing you know that gives you the feeling of strength?
Man, it's such a hard question. I yeah, I just don't know. Um, yeah, I think feeling of strength. I think that just the fact that everybody has lived through everything that's happened to them up to the point up to now should give you some comfort and should give you some strength. So if I look at hardships that I thought I'd never get through as I was growing up, knowing that I'm here now, I got through them. I think I think that's how I would interpret that question. Hope that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's all good. That's all good. Cammy or DiCaprio?
Oh, dude, so hard. I think Cammy, just for the OGs,
Yeah. I like
Yeah.
Cammy too. All right. Where is your next getaway destination?
Um, it's top of the South Island, Nelson region.
All right. Yeah. And finally, who is your waifu, Peppersaint?
Who's my waifu? Oh, look, it's got to be Rose. Rose is
Yeah.
definitely my wife. Don't tell folk,
Yeah.
but Rose is. Don't tell. I've got such a soft spot for folk, but she's a little bit stiff,
Yeah.
She's a little bit dull, the personality, but
Hey, Pepper. James, thank you so much, dude. Is there anything?
okay.
Is there anything you want to say to finish it off? Anything you want to any shout outs or anything you want to put out there for the people?
Yeah, I mean, shout outs just really to the amazing community that we've got here in New Zealand. You know, everybody who's even just gone to a Rambats or a tournament or shown up online or is just there playing these games. I think, um, you know, bravo. That's all we can ask for. Um, and just I've got so much time for our guys as well. I really do think we're a really special region, and we've got some amazing players, and I'm just so really proud every time someone does well, international stage or here, it's just so great to see.